Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. How does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Didn't get your picks in before the game started? No problem. You can get in the game for the second half. Sign up today using promo code FOOTBALL and get your first deposit instantly matched up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com or download the mobile app and enter code FOOTBALL to get your deposit match. Some restrictions do apply. See the website for details.
The new era of Thursday Night Football is only on Prime Video. This Thursday, big things are happening in the Big Apple when the Jacksonville Jaguars visit New York to take on the Jets. Pre-game coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with TNF Tonight delivered by Little Caesars live from New York. Not an Amazon Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game. It's the Jaguars and the Jets, only on Prime Video. See amazon.com/watchtnf for details.
Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
And we're on, and welcome to another edition of 3 Yards Per Carry. It's, not a winning edition because it's the third loss in a row, although we'll talk about it. Simon Kleins is here. I'm here. We don't know where Chris Kaufman is. We're trying to locate him right now, and we can't. We will figure it out as we move forward. But this show is brought to you by Manscaped. Use promo code 5RSN. You get 20% off your entire order. Prize Picks. If you're involved with Prize Picks right now, first of all, you got to deposit. You deposit $100, and they give you $100 right away if you use the promo code 5, F-I-V-E. It's a one-time rollover, which means they're essentially just handing you $100 for signing up. But if you are on Prize Picks right now, you get the 12 days of Pixmas, which means they give you a new promotion every single day. Today, you can play the players that have a Christmas sweater on, and if you play them and you bet them over or under, they're boosting your payoff by double the odds. So if it's 2-1, now you get 4-1. I have Aaron Rodgers over 223 yards passing. How do I look, Simon? Bad or good? Sounds good to me? Okay, sounds good. All right. And, of course, Better Edge. Go to betteredge.com/5 reasons, and you get $25 just for signing up. All right, Simon, we got to get into this. Okay. The rivalry is back. I was going to start with some jokes about, what a great game, and then I was going to get into Minnesota, Indianapolis on Saturday, which was all kinds of insane as well. When you go up 33-0 and you lose, like, everybody should fire, right? Everybody should get fired. Right down to the ball boy, the training staff, everybody, right? Because it's almost impossible, especially since it happened in not even an entire game. It happened in a half and really only a quarter and a half. So, but to hell with that game. We're going to talk Dolphins, Bills. That was fun. The only thing that wasn't fun was the final score. Your feeling on that game, Simon?
Good game. I mean, you don't win any cookies for moral victories or for coming second. There's no participation trophies, but actually I thought that the team proved something that they could hang, in cold weather on the road, in a playoff atmosphere, in a playoff kind of game against a really good team, arguably the best team in the league, certainly the best team in the AFC. Absolute mutant at quarterback. And really it came down to whoever had the ball last. And quite frankly, the Dolphins had missed opportunities on offense to win the game. The 2 drops in the early drive by Tyreek Hill and Trent Sherford on back-to-back plays. And then, after getting the touchdown to go up, to take the lead 26-21, was it, after the Tyreek touchdown? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then get the ball back at midfield after the strip sack from Jalen Phillips and the recovery from Christian Wilkins, only to go 3 and out, was a massive blow, because you score a touchdown there. Did they go 3 and out, or did they kick the field goal? Regardless, I think they went 3 and out, and they kicked the field goal on the next drive, didn't they?
No, on that play, I believe when they got the strip sack, you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Then when they got the strip sack, they got a field goal on that drive. They got one first down, then they went 3 and out.
That's right. I think to get to if they scored a touchdown, I think that's game over on that drive, and I just think that was a bit of a missed opportunity, really. but overall, I thought it was a really good game. It was deserving of the Saturday night primetime slot. I thought the team played well. I think there were some coaching issues, both on offense and on defense. Mike McDaniel seemed to get just too cute on some of those third down calls. I haven't checked the stat, but somebody tweeted me to say that, did you see that the Dolphins, I think, had 100 and whatever it was, 157 yards rushing and 7.9 yards per carry going into the fourth quarter, and then had one carry for 1 yard in the fourth quarter, which kind of sums it all up, really, if that is true. But certainly some coaching breakdowns, defensively, some coaching breakdowns. The inability, it's the thing that's really frustrating about the Josh Boyer defense, because actually I think they hold up pretty well for the majority of the time, especially when you consider all the players that are out hurt. But it's just in the big moments, the last play before the half, the 3rd and 23, the inability just to get off the field in critical moments. That you kind of felt like that last drive. When Buffalo scored, that it felt a bit inevitable that they were going to drive down the field to win, or to be able to kick the field goal. And I think they had a 2nd and 23, which they converted on that drive, which was really frustrating. And I think that's the thing that certainly upsets fans. And you can't. I've defended Josh Boyer, but you can't. Some of those things you can't defend. And just that critical inability to get off the field in massive moments is frustrating, and ultimately cost us the game. The inability just to punch in a couple of touchdowns where we settled for field goals. Felt a bit like the Cincinnati game in that respect, in terms of that drop by Chase Edmonds in the end zone that we settled for the field goal. But overall, I thought the team played really well. Special teams were excellent. Thomas Morstead's been brilliant all season. Jason Sanders seems to have got over the hump. Running game was fantastic.
He was kicking that ball hard, far, fast. He looked great on Saturday night.
He did,
to the point where he Mike McDaniel told Danny Crossman, when we got the ball back on the strip sack, okay, and we ended up with a field goal, okay, and then the following drive, when they tied it 29-29, Dolphins are driving down. Tua hit Cedric Wilson for 21 yards on the fade, and they got to the 40-yard line. Mike McDaniel said that he spoke to Danny Crossman. And he said, "We're good from 52," and Danny Crossman says, "We're golden from 52." Yeah. So, they were willing to kick a field goal from 52 yards in with Jason Sanders. So that tells you the confidence that they had in him. I also have a lot of confidence in Christopher Kaufman, because he always seems to show up. And guess who?
I don't see why.
Oh, Christopher Kaufman. Here he is. The man, the myth, the legend.
Well, Chris, I already asked Simon, and we went on and on about the game. But what did you feel as you were watching this game? I started off the show by saying the rivalry is back on, and it's going to be a fun 2, 3, 4 years, for however long this tit for tat is going to go. But I enjoyed everything about the game except the final score. Your thoughts on the game?
Well, it's funny, because if you really work out through all the playoff machines and stuff like that, and you kind of go through the path of least resistance as far as what, who's going to win what game, and go through the whole thing, we're going to have a rematch. We might have a rematch up in Buffalo against the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. If the Dolphins are able to take care of business in the next 3 games, which I do believe that there's a fair chance of that happening. So it's interesting. It's, yes, you mentioned this. There's rivalry, and it's started back up, and it's a real rivalry now. We're playing them tight. I think that I was watching or I was looking at earlier the statistics, that the passing game has, in particular, against the Buffalo Bills in the 2 games, and I think that it is interesting what this offense, as much as Josh Allen is total kryptonite for this defense, and has been since since even his second game as a rookie, but for the most part in the Brian Flores and post Flores Josh Boyer era, Josh Allen has been lights out against the Dolphins over and over again. I think he's maybe had one bad game, and you can take aside like one game and say statistically it didn't look that good, but I think on the field it looked better. I think he's had like basically one bad outing against us, and with Buffalo being such a strong team, and at this point you just have to give it up for Josh Allen and say, yeah, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and we're going to be playing in the division with one of the best quarterbacks in the league for a long time yet again. So all roads in the division go through Buffalo. And so that's the concerning thing about the defense is even if you take aside that the defense is literally probably the worst in the AFC, you have to look at the fact that they cannot slow down. But this defensive style does not have a history of slowing down Josh Allen at all, and that is a big problem. That's like when New England had Tom Brady, and you're not formulating your team, or you're not trying to beat the Patriots. I think that we need to be formulated to try and beat the Buffalo Bills, and unfortunately, that probably does mean a change of defensive coordinator after the year is over, and a new system altogether. But watching the game, it was fun. It was a competitive game. I thought a lot of my fears about how the game was going to go really got set aside pretty early in the game, offensively speaking. And I saw what they were doing on the ground. I saw the imagination that went into it, the multiplicity that went into the ground game. And the commitment might not have been there still. It's not like they were overzealous with the run game against the Buffalo Bills, but it was a balanced attack. It was thoughtful. There was variety, and overall, it looked like the offense was getting back on track. If only the defense was. And I think that it's interesting to hear Simon talk about the situations on defense, because this is a situational defense. This defense is not built necessarily to be, just lights out on every play. This defense is built to force the offense into situations where we can get a beat on what they need to do because of the situation that they're in. And then we can capitalize, the defense can capitalize on their predictability and their, and the fact that, there are things that are shut down from the offense's, play sheet. And that's not working at all. The situations are exactly what's killing us. And that is very damning to me of the coaching staff, the defensive coaching staff, because that's not what this defense is built for. It's built to be the exact opposite. So I think that it is concerning, and you do have to kind of wonder at this point if this is the team that can go on a hot streak through the playoffs and get us all the way there. And so, in that way, there's some disappointment. But at the same time, we went through really a multi-game cyclical downswing, and I think that started at the bye week. I don't know whether they were, reading their own press clippings or just focusing on resting rather than retooling or whatever. But they came out against the Texans, and they kind of jogged out to a lead in the first half, and then played an atrocious second half of football. Mm-hmm. And then the San Francisco game, but they were in denial about that because, hey, we won by a lot. We're good, we're fine. But then the San Francisco game, he comes and they lose that game, and I think they were still in denial about it. I think they were still, okay, well, we dropped a game, but there was stuff out all over the place out there, and it was really just all Tua. It was just he had a bad game, whatever, It's not going to happen again, so on and so forth. And which I, if you've heard me speaking over the last 3 weeks, that I disagree hard on that, but I think that they were in denial about that. And then they had the game against the Chargers, and that was rock bottom. You can't deny anything at that point anymore with the way that game played out. And so they spent the week retooling, and it was clear from the offensive play calling in this Buffalo game, and the overall, I think the overall, focus of certain players in the game. It was clear that they got the message about the Chargers game, and they started to to get back into the swing of things. And sometimes you don't win right away, even when you start picking yourself up out of the dirt. And they did not win this game, but it was a playoff type of atmosphere. It felt like a playoff type of game. They're in the snow and 20-degree weather in Buffalo. Josh Allen is being who he always is against us, and yet we lose by a walk-off field goal at the very end. We had an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter at one point. Should have been a 2-score lead if two guys can catch the ball and catch really well thrown balls in the end zone. I think that gives us a lot of confidence that, hey, we are going to be looking at a play or wild card spot going into somebody's home, stadium with a high energy crowd, and possibly some weather conditions. And this gives us a ton of a ton of confidence, I should say, that they will handle that. Okay. And I think that that's important, but at the same time, I think we're starting to get into a full focus of the shortcomings of this team, and the shortcomings that ultimately are not going to bring us home, the trophy this year. So, it's a little bit, I guess, bitter. I'd say bittersweet, except there's no sweet because we didn't win the game, but it was promising in one sense, but also, kind of a little bit still sad in another sense. I don't think this defense is fixing itself anytime before the end of the year, and Byron Jones's absence does not explain it. So I think that it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I do think they're pulling themselves out. Last time we pulled ourselves out of a 3-game losing streak. They won 5 straight. So I think they're going to take care of business next week against the Packers, probably against the New England Patriots, and then on the road. And then we'll see that big Week 18 matchup against the New York Jets and a staff full of coaches that Mike McDaniel says is, second only to the 49ers as far as the fact that he knows everybody on that staff and respects everybody on that staff.
It's going to be pretty simple going forward. Jets lose to the Jaguars on Thursday. Dolphins win the next 2. They clinch a playoff spot. And then that game against the Jets could be for seeding anywhere from 5 to 7. So
but you got to win it.
Yeah. Well, you got to win the next 2. You got to win the next 2. You know what I mean? You win the next 2, you clinch early.
I'm looking at it. We're 0-0. We've got a 3-game season now.
Yeah, and it's as simple as you can get it. You win 2 out of the 3, you're in. You lose 2 out of the 3, you're probably out.
There's a scenario where you lose 2 and you beat the Jets and go 1-2 and still get in. So
yeah,
the interesting thing for me is that you look at it. I mean, yeah, we played brilliantly against the Bills, but if the playoffs were today, we'd play the Chiefs, right? But actually, I wouldn't fancy necessarily going to Kansas City. I wouldn't really fancy going to Cincinnati. But of the rest of the teams, if we had to go to Tennessee, there's nothing much about the Titans that scares me. If we had to go to the Ravens, again, especially without Lamar, nothing much that scares me. I don't think the Chargers would beat us again. And then, I think we beat the Patriots. I think we beat the Jets. I think we beat the Jaguars. And even if the Jaguars toppled the Titans, I'd actually be more scared of the Jags, I think, than I would be of Tennessee.
Yeah, well, they're hot and their quarterback's playing at a high level now.
Yeah, and Lawrence is playing out of his mind at the moment. But, I don't, apart from Cincinnati and the Chiefs, let's say the Bills are out of it for the first round because they're I wouldn't be scared necessarily of going on the road and beating any of those teams.
That's true.
You've got to get
can they string together 3 of them?
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Momentum's a funny thing, Chris, isn't it? It doesn't take much, does it? Let's say we beat Green Bay, we beat New England, beat the Jets. We're the hot team. We're one of the hot teams heading into the playoffs. And let's say you end up on the road against Tennessee. and you beat the Titans. Well, hello. Now we're in the division championship and we've won 4 straight. And actually, we'd have won 5, 9. We'd be 9-3 over the last 12 games if you want to look at it like that.
Yeah,
that would be.
No, that's a fair point, but at the same time, I mean, can you imagine stringing it together in the playoffs with this defense?
Probably not. Probably not.
They need one guy desperately, and we're gonna talk about some of the individual players.
The offense can get hot. We've seen it, right?
I wouldn't worry about having to match up with Treylon Burks and Westbrook Akina and those guys in Tennessee, right? With the guys that we've got on the back end.
Right.
I wouldn't worry about the Ravens because they've got the worst receiving core in the league. Chargers, I thought we played them pretty well. Sometimes you look at that throw from Herbert last night to set up the winning field goal. Some things you just can't quantify. But again, you kind of fancy them against those. You wouldn't feel like outmatched against those receivers. I think when you talk about Cincinnati, if Higgins and Boyd and obviously Chase, Mixon, they're all healthy, especially on the back end, that that's putting an awful lot of pressure onto Bethel and Crossan and Kohu, who've all been, to be fair to them, they've all been magnificent given their standing. But that's an awful lot of pressure to think, say to Kader Kohu, buddy, you've either got Jamar Chase or you've got T. Higgins. Good luck with that.
Well, in this game, and we got to go to a break right now. But speaking of Kohu, there was a play, and I'm going to talk about it on the second half of the show. But first, these words.
Do you have a water leak and can't find where it's coming from? Are you dealing with water or mold damage in your home or business? Then call Water Cleanup of Florida at 954-579-0356 for immediate assistance. With over 60 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and their team is prepared to handle all types of leak detection issues, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. After the leak has been located and repaired, Water Cleanup of Florida will then clean, dry, and fully restore the damaged areas. Water Cleanup of Florida is fully licensed, insured, and certified to provide the one-stop shopping that busy homeowners and business owners require. There is no need to bring in other contractors. They will handle the entire project from start to finish. Service areas include Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. Call Michael anytime on his personal cell phone at 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356. Or visit their website at wcufl.com. Water Cleanup of Florida. If you have the schmutz, they have the guts.
The new era of Thursday Night Football is only on Prime Video. This Thursday, big things are happening in the Big Apple when the Jacksonville Jaguars visit New York to take on the Jets. Pre-game coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with TNF Tonight delivered by Little Caesars live from New York. Not an Amazon Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game. It's the Jaguars and the Jets, only on Prime Video. See Amazon.com/watchtnf for details.
Who's virtual reality really for? Oh, just anyone who wants to be a quarterback in NFL Pro Era. Do you want to become the Iron Man? Because you can do that too. Maybe you want a casual afternoon fighting zombies. Or a roller coaster in your living room. The MetaQuest 2 is for anyone who's wishing big this holiday season.
Make your extraordinary wishes come true in virtual reality with MetaQuest 2. Buy now at meta.com/quest. MetaQuest 2 for ages 13+.
Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. How does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Didn't get your picks in before the game started? No problem. You can get in the game for the second half. Sign up today using promo code FOOTBALL and get your first deposit instantly matched up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com or download the mobile app and enter code FOOTBALL to get your deposit match. Some restrictions do apply. See the website for details.
And we're back. And as promised, we're going to talk about some of these players. There was a play, Kader Kohu, that he made in the end zone against Stephon Diggs, which was ridiculous. He was in bump and run coverage all the way. Breaks it up at the point of, he face guarded him perfectly. Unfortunately, he didn't do that at the end of the game. But he face guarded him perfectly, broke it up. And then if you watch the replay of the game, of that play, somehow we had Kader Kohu on Stephon Diggs in the slot, one-on-one with no help anywhere. Speaking of help, I think they needed Eric Rowe in this game because Dawson Knox, ripped us apart. Your thoughts on how the back end played, Simon? Because they were. I could swear I could see Josh Boyer running around with band-aids. At one point, they had Justin Bethel out there playing. Essentially, was like a big nickel, and he was locked up on Dawson Knox. He actually made a play. I don't know. They obviously need help back there. I don't think it's coming this year, but they could have used Derek Rowe. You agree?
Definitely. Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, let's look at it. Let's break it down. Okay. Number one corner is playing on, obviously playing hurt. You can see by his movement that he's playing hurt, right? The number two cornerback is out probably for the year. The number three cornerback is out with a torn Achilles. You know, the number four cornerback is out with a torn ACL. You know, we're down to essentially two special teams guys in Keon Crossan and Justin Bethel. I mean, but Bethel played more snaps in the Pittsburgh game than he on defense, and he played in 4 seasons with the Patriots. You know, that tells you. And the other guy who's playing almost, you know, I think who played every defensive snap or almost every defensive snap is an undrafted free agent from Texas A&M Commerce, which is a school I'd never even heard of until we drafted him. Okay, that's the corners. The safeties, number one safety is sort of playing a slightly different role because he's being forced to do it. The number two safety is out for the season with the torn Achilles. Number three safety, Eric Rowe, was missing on Saturday, sorry. And then you're down to, you know, Elijah Campbell as well is out. You're down to Clayton Fijedelam, who nobody wants to see on the field, you know, unless it's special teams.
Who played snaps too on third down.
And Noah Igbenogany was playing, you know, a little bit hybrid safety core. I mean, we can talk all we like about Josh Boyer, and yet there are certainly issues. But my God, you know, the job that's being done on the back end by that coaching staff, especially the secondary coaches, just to keep them afloat. You know, and don't forget, on Saturday night, you're playing against Josh Allen, but also Stephon Diggs, you know, Gabe Davis, Beasley's back, Isaiah McKenzie. They've got backs out the backfield that can catch the ball really well. The tight end's excellent, you know, and
I must admit, I had a awful feeling of dread when Cole Beasley caught that first pass from Josh Allen. I was like, oh no, it's back. Oh man. Yeah, Noah Igbenogany played 33 snaps.
Yeah. I mean,
had 2 tackles. Yeah. I gotta dig into Noah Igbenogany because like maybe he's good. I don't know. Maybe he's turned it around.
I don't think he's good, but I mean, I can only remember him getting beaten once if he played 33 snaps. I mean, you know, that's not bad.
He's given up a 67.9 passer rating this year in coverage. It's best on the team, by the way. I'll talk about another guy, Javon Holland, and I think that they found something to start the second half. They started playing him. I don't know. I guess you could call that buck linebacker. Because
I thought that was his best game, maybe of the season, but certainly in the last 6 or 8 weeks.
And if you notice, and I'll get Chris on this because they went away from this, but for the most part, when Josh Allen just starts rolling, he makes your linebackers look like clowns. Because first of all, he's bigger than all of them. All right, so he could run through tackles from Landon Roberts and Jerome Baker and Duke Riley. Sometimes he could run right past people, like he did on against Duke Riley for that big run at the end of the game. But all of a sudden, when you started playing Javon Holland on the line, kind of in that buck linebacker role where he was kind of spying on Josh Allen and Josh Allen was trying to leave the pocket, like all of a sudden we look like equals on the same field because our guy is just as athletic as their guy, although he's not bigger and he's much smaller, but he's a good tackler and he's more athletic than Josh Allen. It seemed like we kind of evened the playing field right there, and then we went completely away from it. Your thoughts on what Javon Holland, how he played and how they played against Josh Allen?
Well, so one thing you have to keep in mind about Javon Holland is, you know, for all, you know, the stuff about playing in a bunch of different spots. I mean, if you go through it, I mean, he's playing, you know, 40 to upwards of 70 snaps a game at free safety. I mean, he is playing deep safety position a lot, you know, which is what I think you kind of want with him. It was an interesting idea that they had to sort of bring him down and have him sort of fake fake a coverage and then end up being the spy for Josh Allen, and that was nice. But overall, I mean, he gave up that big play in the end zone too. I mean, you have to say it. And when you look at all these guys and you say, yeah, they're playing well, but not every play, and then you look at the scoreboard and it's 30 plus, and it's and it's like, everybody's playing well except for a couple of plays, and there's just too much pressure on the individual players to be perfect. There's too much pressure on an Xavier Howard to be perfect in a year where he's obviously going through something physically. How much and how detrimental it is, I don't really know. Only he would be able to tell you that, or only the Dolphins staff would be able to tell you that. But we're talking about all the injuries and the players and who's out there. I'm not buying it, because Eric Rowe has missed one game this year, and it was a healthy. Before this game, it was a healthy scratch. He was healthy for the game. He just missed it. They've been playing without Nick Needham. That is true. But you know what? I'll be damned if Kader Kohu isn't giving us what Nick Needham gives us. I've seen what Nick Needham gives us. Okay. Kader Kohu has given us that. Xavier Howard has fallen off a cliff, but he's got too much being put on him. I'm not buying this excuse that, that it's all injuries, and that's what takes you from a good defense down to the worst defense in the AFC. And that's what we're facing with the Dolphins defense this year. And I think it's a scheme, because, and here's the tell. If you know what this scheme is about, if you know what this defense is about, this style is about, in terms of the pressure, the zero blitz looks, and all of that stuff, you know what that's about. And you find yourself mid-season having to trade for Bradley Chubb so that you don't do that anymore, and you're going away from the identity of your defense to just try something on the fly. I think that tells you a lot of what you need to know about whether this style can continue with this defense and this team and this division against these opponents. And I don't think it can. And so I don't think you're gonna be sitting here next year with Josh Boyer, again having this debate back and forth all the time with how much is he going to blitz this game. Our defensive linemen, who we know to be very talented, who we see them being very, very talented on the field, are they actually going to get home when we rush only 4? I think that there's something about there's a 1 + 1 + 1 that's not adding up to 3 here. And I think that that's the real problem that I'm seeing in the Dolphins defense right now, because they shouldn't be this bad. I get that sometimes a guy misses a player, but you look across the league, you see injuries all over the place.
Yeah.
All right. The Buffalo Bills played us without, the first time around, without both of their safeties. Weren't their corners missing too? I mean, it's injuries happen all over the NFL. It doesn't mean that you automatically become the worst defense in the AFC. I think that, yes, Josh Allen had another great game against us. He seems to always have a great game against us. That's part of the problem. Yes, I think that this season, Byron Jones, his absence, Brandon Jones, his absence. Brandon Jones, heading into the year, let's be honest, Brandon Jones was not any kind of marquee name at the safety position. Nick Needham was a good nickel corner, a decent to good nickel corner, that has been replaced by Kader Kohu, who has been a decent nickel corner. We haven't had Byron Jones, and yes, I understand that the defense is sort of built to have 2 guys like Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. But isn't that part of the problem? Isn't that part of the problem now? Because you're not going to have Byron Jones next year, and apparently you're not going to have Xavier Howard next year, or at least not the Xavier Howard we know and love. So it's really, you really start to get. I mean, I understand like defending Josh Boyer, and it's never really as simple as we tend to make it about the coaches and just dogpiling on them. But at the same time, this is a problem, and this is becoming a persistent problem. And I'm not seeing a solution in sight within this structure, and that includes for this year going into the playoffs and potentially going on the road and having to face guys like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or Joe Burrow and those passing attacks. I think Simon is absolutely right about teams like Tennessee Titans. I think even the Chargers, they, a little humility here. They whooped us. They solidly beat us. So a little humility here because we can't walk into that game assuming we'd win it, but at least I think we could compete. Some of these other guys in the playoffs in a playoff setting, I don't think we can even compete with. There's part of me that thinks we're not even going to be able to compete with them because of this defense. And so it sucks, but yeah, that's where we're heading right now.
Well, the defense has shown that they can stop conventional runs against anybody, anywhere on the road or at home. So I like them against Tennessee. They can't play the Chargers, by the way, because the Chargers are not overtaking the Chiefs. They can only play the Chargers like down the road, maybe in the second round. Like maybe they play the Chargers in the second round. Let me see. There has to be an upset, like the 2 seed or the 3 seed has to go down.
It would be second round. You're correct about that.
Yeah. So our first round opponent is going to be the loser of, and that's a good thing, by the way, that there's going to be a race for the 1 seed event because they get to do our dirty work for us because they get to beat up on everybody else.
Yeah, I was talking about overall. I was talking about overall playoffs rather than. I know we obviously can't play them in the first round.
Right, I agree. I'm with Simon on that. Like, I'm talking about overall playoffs. Like, say we do get past the first round. Like, what are our realistic chances of burning through the playoffs here?
Yeah, and we got to get into one of these players because that's what everybody's talking about. It wouldn't be a Miami Dolphins season if somebody wasn't looking for a scapegoat. And I didn't want to be one of these dipshit teams that one part of the team falters or due to injury or they just play poorly and let's just fire everybody on the defensive staff. But I tend to agree with Chris in this regard. There's good players on this defense, and I can't find many teams that have a better edge rotation than the Miami Dolphins have. And one player that is now getting the brunt of the fans' ire is Bradley Chubb. Jalen Phillips was spectacular in that game. He was kind of non-existent in the first half, but in the second half, he couldn't be blocked. And forget about Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins. We know who those guys are. Zach Sealer, especially in this game, was a menace for their running game, and he provided pressure almost consistently, almost all day for the snaps that he played. But Bradley Chubb, aside from a couple of quarterback hits, didn't make an impact. And you pay $100 million to the guys that are going to make an impact. Your thoughts on his game, Simon, and how it's gone for Bradley Chubb so far?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love Chubb in Denver. I've got to say, I didn't love him coming out. I think he plays hard. I think he plays with hustle, but I don't think that he plays particularly within the structure. I think he is a almost exclusively wide rusher or a bull rusher who gives up the inside way too easily. So I think he can be beaten on the inside. And at the moment, he's just struggling. And when you think about you paid $110 million and gave up a first round pick for him, that's a concern. I think at one point the commentator referred to him as Nick Chubb, which was, and at that point you'd rather have Nick Chubb rushing the passer than Bradley Chubb. I think it was on the touchdown at the end of the first half. But at the moment, it certainly looks like not a great trade, and it's a struggle at the moment. The one thing I would say, and I'll need to look at the numbers, I'd be intrigued to know how many sacks the Dolphins have had since Chubb arrived. Not Bradley Chubb sacks, but just generally, because I suspect there is a sense of he is beginning to open up opportunities for other people to get to the quarterbacks. Now, I've seen somebody say that we've had 20 sacks since he joined. So I'll try and get the numbers out before the end of the show. But it would be interesting to see whether or not he's having an effect, not by getting to the quarterback himself, but by his presence, which certainly wouldn't surprise me. just by teams rolling over a guard or chipping a tight end or those sorts of things, is then allowing other players the opportunity to get to the quarterback. So I'll have a look at that. But overall, it's not been great.
No, it has not. And one guy that has been great, and I guess we'll finish up on the defense here before we move on to the offense and their identity. But Chris, nobody can argue. Like, we all agree, Christian Wilkins is now, he was a top 10 defensive tackle, in my opinion, coming into the year. Top 10. Brenton Buckner class, let's say, but not the elite class. Man, I think he's in the elite class now. I think he's a top 5 defensive tackle. We know Zach Sealer's really, really good. Jalen Phillips is coming on, and he couldn't be blocked in that second half. He was having a great second half. He's just not as athletic as Josh Allen, and that's not, and he's a really good athlete, but Josh Allen he's a super athlete for that size. So, he's not the same guy. We kind of like Jerome Baker. Bradley Chubb, we established, is a really expensive guy. Melvin Ingram has had a monster year, and he's a guy that you just got to bring back. He's good against the run. He's going to rush the passer well. He's strong. There's way too much talent, and I get the feeling like you can't put your finger on it, and it has to be scheme. But is it as simple as these guys just have to get to the quarterback for this defense to work? Because they're actually doing that. If you look at their numbers the last few weeks, and they're still giving up points on the road. They're an awful defense on the road.
That's precisely the point, though, isn't it? I mean, when you're looking at a defense where it feels like everything has to go perfect, everybody has to be lights out on every play in order to not end up giving up 30 plus. Like what's going on here? Why is one and one not adding up to 2 here? And that's what I think we're seeing on the defensive line, even because frankly, I don't think Bradley Chubb's played that bad. I've watched him play. I've watched him against the opposing offensive tackles. He dominates a lot of plays. Like he does. I mean, you can tell when a guy is winning. Right. You can tell when a guy is going up against blockers and winning and doing a good job. He's generally doing a good job. And frankly, his pressure stats, like I think he's had 21 pressures since he's gotten here. And I think Pro Football Focus has him at like 190 pass rush snaps or something.
Pressure rate's excellent.
What's that? Yeah. So, and to Simon's point, the number you're looking for, yes, it is 20 sacks that they've had since he arrived in the 6 games, whereas they had 15 sacks in the previous 8 games, right? So we're getting more pressure. We're getting more pressure with 4. We're getting more sacks. I think that there's things that are happening that are good that way, but you're like, okay, well, but why does everybody have to be perfect on every single play in order to not give up 30 points? And I think that's what we're looking at, and that's what we're trying to figure out. And I think that there's a mentality issue. If your defensive identity and your mentality is built on something, which is like, this blitz packaging stuff, and then you're trying to switch it up, then I think that there's something missing there in terms of the overall just comfortability with the players in the scheme and the energy and being able to swarm the ball. And I think that that's something that we're going to have to look at in the off season. But I mean, I think that honestly, I've looked at him, I've watched him. Bradley Chubb is playing some pretty good football. Jalen Phillips is playing some pretty good football. Christian Wilkins is playing really great football. Zach Sealer, we know, plays really great football. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, what's wrong here? What's wrong with this picture? And so that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. And you're almost like, they only blitzed Josh Allen 8 times, I think, in the game, and thank God, because they blitzed him, I think, 40% of the time in the first game, and that was a big mistake. And I think I shared with you on the preview episode something like, the disparity of his passer rating against our blitz plays in the first game versus non-blitz plays was just stark. And sure enough, like, we blitzed him 8 times, and I think Josh Allen had like a ridiculous. I think we blitzed him 8 times, and he got 2 touchdowns out of the eight snaps.
Yes.
like that's so. Thank God we dialed it back. But at the same time, it's like, do we have a defense that schematically, I always wondered about this even before we traded for Chubb. Are we allowing these defensive players to really kind of have agency over their own rush and have set guys up, set blockers up and such? Because this is a scheme heavy defense, right? Some defenses are not scheme heavy at all. We just played one, Leslie Frazier. This is a scheme heavy defense. And when it's scheme heavy and you have so much being dictated from upstairs, it makes me wonder if the players are, really have the agency to make decisions out there and to set guys up and to take advantage of it, or if they're always getting the call from downstairs and they're always very limited in what they're allowed to do, and I think that that's something that we have to look at. That's what I mean by, there's something missing in terms of the mismatch between how we're trying to play these guys now versus how they're built to play, or how they have been built to play since Brian Flores arrived in 2019. That's something that we really have to look at. But because we saw Cheriko made plays out there, all of the defensive linemen made plays out there. Jerome Baker made some plays out there. And Javon Holland made plays out there, and you have Xavier Howard back there, but and yet you allowed 32 points. Like, something's not adding up.
Yeah. We're gonna move on to the offense. That thing going around and I've seen it as well, Simon, that we only ran one time. First of all, we only had 9 offensive snaps in the fourth quarter. We had 2 drives, 2 possessions. I'm not counting the field goal, because the field goal is the field goal. And I'm not counting the punt, okay? They had 9 snaps. They ran it 3 times. So 6 passes, 3 runs. Mostert had 3 runs for 18 yards. He had an 11-yard run, a 6-yard run to start the field goal drive. And then he had a 1-yard run when they got the ball. When they were driving, they started at their own 25. Tua went to Tyreek Hill for 13 yards. Then Tua hit Cedric Wilson for 21 yards on the fade. Then they ran it with Mostert to the Buffalo 41. Then they ran the screen pass, 2nd and 9 at the Buffalo 40 because it was respotted. And then it was 3rd and 12. And it would have not mattered because Tua threw it to Waddle. I felt that he got held there, but there was a penalty on Miami anyway.
He was pretty well mugged on that play, I thought.
Yeah, but I don't think it would have not mattered because it was an illegal shift.
Mattered,
yeah, it would have not mattered. They could have thrown that flag. It would have been offsetting penalties anyway. So
yeah,
do the entire play-by-play, Alf, just because I'm sure that's what the listeners definitely want to hear.
Yeah, well, now they have it because it's been a theme all week. Oh my God!
I think it's a damning indictment, actually, even more so than 1 carry for 1 yard. In that we ran the ball 3 times, averaging 6 yards per carry in a fourth quarter on the road in the snow when we had the lead, and then we went away from it and threw 6 times. That to me is,
Yeah, but
but what about so and this is interesting too, because looking at the drive, like I think it must have been our final drive offensively where we didn't get the job done. If we're looking at that drive, there were some good plays, good throws, I should say. First for the drive starts with 2 straight throws by Tua Tagovailoa. You know what? He threw strikes. they had a nice 13-yarder to Tyreek Hill. He throws one in a one-on-one, kind of mismatch situation to Cedric Wilson, who makes a brilliant play on the ball. And then they run the ball with Raheem Mostert for 1 yard, and then they throw a screen Tyreek Hill that is snuffed out for a -3 yards. I mean, I'm seeing people on Twitter and so on and so forth. They're like, Yeah, but what was wrong with that drive was that they were aggressive and successful, and then they got unaggressive and it killed the drive. And it's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. And I think that's probably, I mean, I'm still fully of the belief that, yeah, Mike McDaniel doesn't stay committed the way that he should, even in this game. But it's funny how that can manifest in so many different ways. And I think that, in this, that drive in particular with, 9 minutes to go, starting at 9 minutes to go and ending at 6 minutes to go. I mean, that's an interesting. We're complaining about the running game, the lack of running game and stuff like that. But would you have rather run the ball for 6 yards instead of getting that 13-yard strike to Tyreek Hill on first down? Would you rather run the ball for 5 yards instead of getting that 21-yard pass to Cedric Hill on the second play of the drive? I mean, it was.
I'd definitely rather run the ball than those ridiculous third down calls. Absolutely, I definitely.
Well, here's the thing.
12?
On the field goal drive,
on the short third downs.
Oh, the short third downs.
I mean, we had 23 passes and 22 rushes in the first quarter, and then when we're in the lead, trying to kill the game, we throw the ball 7 times and just run it 3 times.
Yeah, they have no faith in the offensive line converting a long one. Like, a short one is different, but it's clear that they don't have any faith in the offensive line being able to convert a 2-yard situation or one.
If my aunt had wheels, she'd be a bicycle. But I think in hindsight, having Jeff Wilson would have been a huge plus in that game on Saturday.
Yeah.
And by the way, the coach today said that Jeff Wilson was really and Eric Rowe were really close to playing.
Yeah.
And if you watched Jeff Wilson, he was actually warming up 2 hours before the game, and he was running on the field. So
I thought it was a big loss not to have a big back in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Just somebody, and we talked about on the pod last week having LaMichael P. Ryan, but just go through the free agent running backs that I'm sure there's somebody that could have even come off the street and just picked up a couple of first downs and short, because we are really bad in short yardage situations generally,
really bad.
We gave it to Ingold one time, and he got it, and he got a conversion. So I just especially as you kind of come down the stretch on the road in cold games, just having a big guy can just play, like we said last week, somebody that in the fourth quarter can just start to wear defensive fronts down and, just start hitting people and picking up 3 yards here and 1 yard there. And, whenever you need it, just to, there are some teams in the league, who are outstanding in short yardage situations. Washington last night, for example, with Brian Robinson, that's the kind of hammer that you kind of, we don't have. And, it's great that Mostert's there, and Wilson acts more like a hammer, even though he's only 206 pounds. He plays much more physically, but just having a big old bruiser who can just come in and pick up a couple of yards when you need it is, something I think we lack. And I think Wilson would have made a really big difference on Saturday night. Yeah, what people are complaining about mostly are those 3rd and 1 and 32 calls. That field goal drive, they have the Tyreek touchdown. They go up 26-21. Then they get the strip sack at the 47. They recover it at the 47, and here's the drive, okay? Because there's the fourth quarter has just started, and you're thinking to yourself, you go up, another touchdown here, like they need 2 touchdowns. You kind of start feeling really good about this. But you'll take the field goal and go up 8, right? They face the 3rd and 1 here, okay? Because they get a first down on the first run with Mostert, and then that's when they stall out, and they have a 3rd and 1. They ran that slip waggle play with Durham Smythe. They've ran that all year. It's been good all year. The Bills just blew it up, and that play happened at the 27-yard line. Who knows if they convert that one, they go in. The next play, they kick the field goal. So, if we, do you want to run it right there on 3rd and 1? I tend to agree, yeah. But, the Bills were beginning at this point in the fourth quarter. They were beginning to bring guys into the box. And what would you want to call against, a heavy box on 3rd and 1? That slip waggle screen to one of our tight ends seems to work every time.
Smart.
Why not? No?
I'm never a fan of those fast breaking out routes against twitched up corners. It's not Tua's best throw. I think he throws the 10-yard outs, actually, ironically, I think he throws much better. You go back to that Jets game last year, that great third down throw to Waddle, the game this year earlier on where he threw that amazing ball to Waddle and sort of, I can't remember who it was against, but sort of up high and above the hand by about half an inch of whichever team it was. I can't remember. But I don't. To me, that's not his forte. Those short, and especially again when you're playing, Trey White and Taron Jackson and Dane Jackson and those guys are twitchy corners who kind of know what's coming, I think. And I just didn't like those calls. And the little slip screen to Smile. I don't like it when you're getting a tight end and forcing him to pick up yards with a catch at or behind the line of scrimmage, which is essentially what that was.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't love those calls, I've got to say. It just felt like, as it has done a few times, certainly in the second half of the season, a bit like McDaniel's just slightly overthinking things a little bit. He's just almost getting too cute with those sorts of things. And, hopefully we get that shit straightened out.
Yeah, well, with that one in particular, I gotta say, the interesting thing is, you can make the case, especially with this coach, the way he calls, with his fourth downs, he almost is like us playing Madden, like we're just always going to go for it on fourth down. But I think that in this case, when you've got the long one, you could do well. If it's a long one, then I think that you do dive. I don't care if it's an 8-man box, you do dive because you get half a yard and then it's a short, it's a half a yard left to get on fourth down. And it makes for a call that, that you can be reasonably confident in. And I think that, especially if you're up 5 points and looking to get up by more than one score, I think that, so you have two choices really on a 3rd and 1. You can run it, you can dive it straight 2 straight times, knowing that you're probably going to get one. You're probably going to convert on one of them, either the first one or the second one, or you can take a shot into the end zone on the 3rd and 1, knowing that you're going to go for it on 4th and 1. You know what I mean? Like, and so instead what you get is, sort of an aim short, get short situation with that, that Durham Smythe pass.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't understand that. I'm with Simon. I don't understand it.
Since the Detroit game as well, we seem to have stopped running that little play where the tight end or the fullback just comes in and just takes the snap, and nobody could stop that. I think every time we ran it, we converted. And
every time we ran it, we get like 2 yards.
Yeah. I know there's a sense of like, okay, teams know it's coming, but teams still can't stop it. So why have we all of a sudden stopped running it? It just, again, that just seems...
No, and I'll say another thing. One thing that I've been saying this for weeks, and I thought that we were going to see it in this game. We have really good ball carriers at the wide receiver position. And it's not only Tyreek and Jalen Waddle.
Cedric Wilson was a high school quarterback.
Yes, we got Cedric Wilson. Sherfield is a physical runner, and he's 225 pounds. Man, why not get one of these guys out on the perimeter? Is what I'm saying on one of these 3rd and 1s.
Well, they tried that though, not 3rd down, but I mean they tried the screen and it got blown up.
I would just waggle Sherfield in like they did with Ingold and Durham Smythe and get him to take the snap. Well, same with Wilson.
Yeah, one thing that was really interesting. I don't know if you guys saw the Giants Washington. What are they now? Oh, they're the Commanders. I forgot.
Yeah,
the Giants Commanders game last night. Every time Washington was coming in with a heavy box, they did a very interesting thing. They were in the shotgun, and Daniel Jones would step aside, which a lot of Giant fans would like to see him do anyway. But he would step aside, and Saquon Barkley would take the snap, and they would run it until they got him out of it. So, why not
Who was I watching? Oh, Philadelphia, who ran who essentially just had a left guard and the center, and then moved the left tackle and a backup to. They had about 8-9 players on the line, and Hurts took the snap from under center and just ran over left guard and scored because nobody was expecting it. It was just like, it was, I don't know. I just think it feels like McDaniel just does not trust short yardage rushing situations. And yet with that specific play, the motioning tight end or the motioning fullback taking the snap, picking up the first down, nobody stopped it. So why would we not continue to do it until somebody does stop it?
Yeah, and why not Wildcat? Why not a wide receiver run? Like they need to get in the lab and devise something, because trust me, there's going to be 3rd-and-1s in the playoffs. They're going to be 3rd-and-1s in these last 3 games that they're going to have to pick up, and it can't be a fire drill. Every time that we've got to pick up a 3rd-and-1. Which it
They're
seemed
just
like
so
that's what they were
uncomfortable.
trying to do.
They're so uncomfortable with the play calls on those situations, and you can tell. You could see it all year.
Yeah, yeah. So moving on, I guess there's not much else to talk about. So and they did lose the game, so we're not going to give away game balls. But I guess we could comment on the periphery on a few players. I thought, and I'll mention 3 players, although we're not giving away game balls. Jason Sanders, way to go, buddy! Like you were hitting that ball, like that was great to see. Okay, another guy I'm going to give some love to is Teron Armstead. Played a really strong game. If you rewatch it, he was really, really good. Either Greg Rousseau is not as good as people think he is, or Teron Armstead was giving him a really, really hard time. And our guards handled Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver did not play in the first game in week 3. He played in this one. He was non-existent in this one. So I don't know. I came away pretty happy with the way the offensive line played. Your thoughts on or any flowers you want to give, Simon?
I thought for his 3 carries, or whatever it was, 2 carries, I thought Salman Ahmed played really well. I thought it was an excellent touchdown. Just great, quick feet, quick moving of his hips. Just he's a a decent change of pace and certainly played well. Beyond that, I thought it was a collective team effort without anybody really necessarily standing out. I thought Phillips played well. Defensive line generally, I thought played pretty well. I thought Kohu played, really well apart from the big mistake at the end. McKinley played all right, I think. I thought Thomas Morstead punted really well. Especially given as though he almost got killed. I agree with you on Jason Sanders. Thought the quarterback played well. It was a good team effort. It just wasn't enough, unfortunately. And like I said at the very top before Chris joined, no cookies for finishing second.
Yeah, on Verone McKinley, I won't give him any flowers because he looked unathletic on that one run against Josh Allen. And I'm sorry, our safeties can't look unathletic against Josh Allen.
I mean, most people look unathletic against Josh Allen, mate.
Yeah, but Javon Holland didn't look like unathletic. He looked like he was a superior athlete with Josh Allen in the open field.
To be fair, on that one play, on that, when Allen ripped off the 43-yarder or whatever it was, the 47-yarder, it was, there's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? It's
yeah.
I mean, they're putting a lot on McKinley's shoulders. I think he played 73 snaps, and a lot of single high. So, I know we didn't even mention him earlier on when we were talking about injured players, in terms of, I mean, because in that section when Holland, that drive when Holland was off the field, I think we had Fajedalum and McKinley were our safeties, and our corners were Crossan, Kohu, and Howard, which is not ideal.
No, it's not. Yeah, not ideal is a great way to put it. Chris, any flowers you want to give out to anybody on this team?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm going to go straight back to the offense because the offense is what got turned around, and what turned around the offense to me right away, starting the first quarter, was Raheem Mostert and the performance that he had in this game. They talked about it during the game. He took a lot of previous struggles on himself, and said that he was not finding the lanes that he's supposed to be finding, or that he was not hitting the lanes that he was supposed to be hitting, and you could see that he entered this game. I mean, a few players entered this game clearly jazzed up to play a football game, and he was one of them, and he was a big one. He was a big controlling factor in that first half when we were staying competitive. It was so important to stay competitive in that first half, I think. And he was a big factor in staying competitive in that first half. And I think that he deserves a lot of credit for that, because he had a phenomenal game to me.
Yeah, and I can't believe we didn't even mention it, but Jalen Waddle, Buffalo Bill killer, 2 100-yard games against them. That touchdown was electric. Okay, 67-yard touchdown. Good to see. Too bad they lost. Well, we'll talk to you guys next week. Well, not next week. We're going to talk to you later this week, as the Packers are coming into town on Christmas Day at 1 o'clock. Back to our familiar stomping grounds. If you want to laugh a little bit, I'll give you a little news. The forecast for the weather on Christmas Day in Miami is out, and it looks like it's going to be 48 degrees. So we're going to have cold weather once again. So Dolphins are just going to be playing cold weather games the rest of the season, it looks like.
Well, can we have the Chargers send over their heaters?
Yes. So it's going to be a cold and frigid Hard Rock Stadium on Sunday. We'll talk about it on Thursday, but till then.
Thanks for listening to 3 Yards Per Carry. You can subscribe via iTunes, on Podbean, or your usual podcast provider.
In the financial services industry, representation matters profoundly. Only 9% of entry-level talent are Hispanic or Latino. Just 10% are Black. A newly expanded fellowship program by JP Morgan Chase aims to change that with an early pipeline strategy to engage and expose young Black, Hispanic, and Latino talent to financial services through professional development, mentorship, and career guidance. Learn more at jpmorganchase.com/impact.
Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. How does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Didn't get your picks in before the game started? No problem. You can get in the game for the second half. Sign up today using promo code FOOTBALL and get your first deposit instantly matched up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com or download the mobile app and enter code FOOTBALL to get your deposit match. Some restrictions do apply. See the website for details.